are y'all?
Oh, where are you from, Dawna? You got a southern twang on you.
I'm from Georgia.
That'll do it. Yeah, so good. I love it. We've got a southern contingent with you here. Welcome to the Apostate Sisters interview series, where we get to know fellow survivors of the Worldwide Church of God. Each episode, we sit down with former cult members to uncover their unique stories of struggle, resilience, and liberation. Through these conversations, we aim to shed light on the complexities of cult dynamics, the process of deconstruction, and the profound journey towards self-discovery and healing. Join us as we explore some deeply moving personal stories, offering insights and inspiration to anyone on a path to reclaiming their own voice and freedom. Okay, everyone, let's meet Dawna. Dawna grew up in the Worldwide Church of God, born in Louisiana and then raised in Georgia. So we're so lucky to get to have a little bit of insight into what it was like in the Worldwide Church of God in the Deep South. Welcome, Dawna. Yay.
Hi, Dawna.
Hey,
Thank you
so
for being on
much.
our channel. We could typically start with like dates and whether you were born into it or you put yourself there willingly. Were you like a second, third generation of this organization? How did you get involved?
So my father joined the church in 69 or 70. I was born in 68. And I don't remember anything about being in the church when we were in Louisiana. We moved to Georgia when I was 5, and I have memories from there forward. I vaguely remember going to church in Louisiana, but just so vaguely, you know. I, as a child a woman child in the South, in the church. Oh, I hate this church so much for the damage that it has done to women, to girls and girls' children, females of all kinds. Like, it was extremely destructive. I truly did not feel as if I had a voice at all. And we were groomed and raised to be wives and mothers. You can call it what you will. I call it breeding. They're just trying to, keep the numbers up, or trying to keep us under control, not sure of which, and probably both. As a female growing up in this church, I experienced so much oppression that I really had no clue who I was. I was who they trained me to be. And then I married a man who was abusive. And the church had already let me down several times, including when I married this man. And I actually got pregnant before I got married because I had given up when I was about 10 years old. So I'd given up kind of on the church at about 10 years old because I felt like this God's rules were not something that I could follow. And so that I was just basically condemned, in my opinion. And so I was just like, well, I guess I'm going to try to have some fun. But anyway, at the age of 18, when I married my husband, I still thought the church was right, just that I was wrong. When I got pregnant and we told the ministry, we got kicked out of the church. Just what a person who's going through the hardest thing in their life really needs is to be completely cut off from their, support system. And then it turned out the man I married was abusive. And when I went to the church about it, they came over to the house, or the ministry, one of the ministers came over to the house and told me that I needed to learn to keep my mouth shut, and took him out for a beer. And the abuse did not stop, as a result, because, everyone completely, the men were what it was about. I mean, not only that, when I was 12, I turned 13 the next day, and I had a crush on this guy for like 5 or 6 years because he'd been grooming me. And he was 20. If I was turned 13 the next day, he was about 10 years older than me. So he was 22, 23. Because I thought I was in love with him, and we ended up having sex. And
13.
I told someone, and we both got kicked out of the church. Me and the guy. The guy got kicked out of the church for a year only because, what's the big deal if you're having sex with a 13-year-old? And I got kicked out of YOU, not the church. I got kicked out of YOU. And this was the first year I was going to be in YOU. And my mom was not in the church, and so she couldn't be told. So it was a kind of a complex layers of the fuckery, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Fuckery is
you're
the right
in the
word.
church at age 12 and you've gone this whole time, but not with your mom. You've gone with your dad this whole time.
Yes.
So in some way, and you've already decided in your mind, like, this is kind of BS. I'm going to live my life, but you're still subject to their rules. Is that?
Not exactly. I
Okay.
just thought something was wrong with me personally.
Okay.
And so I gave up on myself. I still believed the church was right, but I gave up on myself.
That's
Okay.
pretty typical in WCG. Yeah, take it all on yourself. No, the church is not wrong. God's not wrong. It's me.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh, they taught you from day one to think it was you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so you were kicked out of YOU, but not the church for this, for having been groomed
Right.
and taken advantage of
Mhm.
by someone much older who should have probably been prosecuted.
Should have.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke with my father about this the other day. And he was like, "You think you should have been prosecuted?"
Can I ask how the
Yeah.
relationship is between you and your father now? You guys are
I
close?
love my dad. I believe that he is in a cult, and that my real dad is in there somewhere. But
Sounds
behind the brainwashing. Behind the brainwashing.
Okay.
And I love him very much. And I also have to be careful. He's gotten a lot less rigid as he's aged and things have changed. He just has really strong beliefs. Let's just put it that way. I don't know any other way to put it. He has very strong beliefs. And he does try to be tolerant of others,
Okay.
which is not something he was able to do in the past, because his beliefs were so strong and he was so strongly brainwashed, as we all were, in my personal opinion.
Right.
He's also said that, he just believed when he first got into the church, everything that he looked up was the truth. And so he quit looking it up and checking to see if it was the truth.
And when he says looking it up, he means in the Bible?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, but I mean, the way they twisted the Bible is insanity. Like, if you go back and try to look at some of this stuff now, you're just like, 2 and 2 does not make 7. I mean, that how they would pick out the verses and put them together. Like, no.
They'll figure out a way. It's like putting a puzzle together. Be like, oh, well, this kind of makes sense. So maybe this passage will work.
Word from that.
Let's stick them together. This is what this means. Isn't it obvious?
Yes.
The mind games. Yes, the fuckery, as you say.
I love that word for it.
Right.
The fuckery.
I really feel like the church screwed me over. It set me up for such failure in life because, number one, I believed that the God that they believed in was love. And if that's what love looked like, obviously I'm going to pick not good people to marry, to be with, to be friend. Because
no shit.
No,
Whoa.
that is absolutely no shit. They set you up for failure in one of the worst ways. I always use the example here, Dawna. We were physically abused as children, taught to obey. If you don't obey, you're going to get physically beaten for it as punishment. And I always say, well, how in the fuck am I supposed to have a healthy relationship in the future if that's what my mindset is? If I just look at this person as an authority figure and like, oh, he's beating me because clearly I did something wrong. And I accept that. That is bullshit.
When I got into a healthy relationship and that I didn't have a husband at the time, but I got into a good relationship, and my boyfriend at the time wasn't telling me what I was doing wrong. I was like, well, he must not love me very much.
Oh no.
Or he would tell me. He would tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Oh, dude.
Oh, that's a layer I didn't quite expect. Wow.
And
how did that play out? Did you like
Well, not
come
very
to a
well,
different
not very well.
Oh no. To kind of track this path for you, because here by the time you're 10 years old, you're like, well, I guess I can just give up on being in God's kingdom, but I'm going to have to be subservient in this role for the rest of my life. And you started to play that out, and that, Dawna. Okay. So move a couple years ahead. You've been groomed. You've had sex with that older man who faced no consequences for what he did to you and how he set you up for life in the guise of doing something godly that the church had. Then you're 18, so 5 years later, and you marry an abusive man.
Mm-hmm.
And you think it's love because that's what you were taught. The church taught you to think that fearing someone or being controlled by someone was how love happened. Am I getting this right?
But also at the same time, I was very angry. I was angry about it, and I was trying to be a submissive wife. And I distinctly recall praying to God, dear God, please help me to be submissive. I hate it with all my heart. Please help me. Why would you do this to us?
I find myself constantly apologizing to everyone for everything. It's okay to feel what you feel.
Yeah. All of the feelings are valid. And that's, I think, a thing that was taken from us in the Worldwide Church of God is the idea that our feelings are okay. Like they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, it was so much like,
do
you're
not
not
trust
allowed to
your
feel
heart. The heart is deceitful above all things. Don't trust your heart.
Right.
You
That is
know,
one of the worst passages in the Bible, is to not trust your own. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to, okay, so let's fast forward 47 years later.
Okay.
I had a stroke. I met somebody who I thought was the God of the Bible. I met love is who I met. And it changed my whole entire life and paved the way for my healing, learning to love myself, learning that it's okay to love yourself, period. And especially for me to love myself. And so I thought it was the God of the Bible. And so like I researched because I was thinking, well, maybe the church was just wrong, because I was expecting to meet, should I meet God? I thought I'd be like, oh, please don't. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what was wrong with me. Like, I couldn't follow your rules. They're crazy. I mean, I didn't want to say that, but you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the God I was expecting to meet. And instead I was met with unconditional, like grandparent, like love, the grandparent who sees their child going and being crazy. And they're like, their grandchild, they're like, they'll get there. And so there was no judgment. There was no anger. There was only love. At the time I focused it more on me. And I spent a couple years, like just watching different kinds of churches, his beliefs. And finally I was like, something is not adding up here. Like, the God of the Bible, I'm not sure that is who I met. Since then, I don't know what to believe about God. I do believe that there's somebody out there who loves us extremely much. And I remember, because like there's just one time this is so convoluted.
It's okay. It's okay.
My ex-husband was trying to kill me. And I had this moment of calm where I just got completely calm because I knew I was about to die. And I was like, oh, okay, well, this is it. And I had this thought come into my head to say to my ex-husband, God will forgive you for what you're going to do. And that gave me just enough. It shocked him so much that he let go a little bit. And it gave me enough chance to get away, to fight and get away from him. And but after I met that being that I met, I remembered that presence. I was like, oh, that's who that wasn't even me. Because I was like, dang, I'm so smart. I don't know where that came from, but it wasn't me. It was this love that I had met. And so that has really changed a lot of my beliefs and healed a lot of my broken heart. and let me see very clearly that, how the church set me up, as a female in the South.
And this, you're saying, stemmed from having a stroke.
Yes.
Yeah.
So something entirely shifted in that moment when your brain was going through that. That's amazing. So would you describe, like you call it a being, would you say it's like a peacefulness?
It was the universe. I know that sounds crazy. I have no,
Okay.
but like I was in my body one minute and the next minute I was walking out into the universe, and the universe was above and below me, but I was walking as if I were on something flat, and the universe was God, and the universe was pulsing with love for me. And since then I began to understand PTSD more and understood the physical and bodily compulsions and things of that nature. And I was just, but even at that time, I was so loved. I was so full of love that it didn't even make me mad, that he was also going to be okay with the men, but to me, that makes sense of a loving God. A true loving God is going to save every one of us, in my personal opinion, if there is a God.
Sure. Well, I mean, Nancy and I consider ourselves atheists, but I do love the idea that in that moment you connected with something that really changed things for you.
Yeah.
It changed me forever. I mean, there's no going back.
Yeah, right. I mean, we can't prove a God or whatever, but like whatever you call it, if that made your life better, I'm fucking here for that. Yeah.
It was almost like a love and compassion sort of just manifested itself.
Yeah.
And just like, you know what? If there is a God, guess what? It's not that one that you learned about. Who would do all that? No, it would be someone with compassion and loves you unconditionally. But yeah, that's not who we were raised with. And I think a lot of people who escape the worldwide Church of God dabble in a lot of different religions. I know Patty and I did for a while. We both found ourselves in evangelicalism. We didn't put ourselves in the worldwide Church of God. We were raised into it. Oh, we did the little thumb. But yeah, we somehow geared towards evangelicalism because whether that was like a step up or step down, we just thought, there has to be more to this God, like compassionate and love. In evangelicalism, whether they were raised in or not, this whole concept of deconstruction is to like ask yourself the questions why you believe what you believe. And so
that was part of my journey, to start asking myself, what do I really believe, and why do I believe it? Because I have CPTSD and I had it for like forever. I don't know. It severely impacted my whole life, and I haven't worked in 20 years or more, almost 30 years, because, well, I went from out of the frying pan into the fire. So after I divorced my first husband, I married a man who's now in prison for murder. And like my first husband, I had to worry about black eyes and broke ribs. My second husband, I had to worry about, am I going to live to the next day? And they were both in the church. As a matter of fact, the second one that I married was my youth counselor growing up, and he had stood up for me. So I kind of had a hero's worship for him, only to find out, he was extremely, terrifyingly evil. And that was about the time that the church split up. When the changes happened, I was thrown into what? Well, then what the hell is reality then? Like all these years.
Philosophical moment.
And so I was already pretty screwed up from having one, marriage that was abusive for 7 years, and then another one that was extremely abusive just for a couple months, because I got the hell out of there.
Good.
Okay, good.
Okay, you stood up for yourself at least by that point.
No, there was no standing up without dying. I escaped.
Oh, my God.
Yes. My husband had a kidney infection, and so he was in the bed and couldn't get out of the bed. And so I had a car that I had brought into the marriage, but that wasn't working anymore. And so I would go in and take care of him. And then I would go back out and start working on my car. And I figured out how to fix it enough to get me out of there, you know. And
Badass.
because he was so dangerous, I couldn't go home to my parents and I couldn't go to around where my children were. So I lived in my car in Atlanta for a little while. I really truly do not remember what happened that ended up with me coming back home to my hometown. Something happened that changed my mind from thinking he would get my children or hurt my family.
Yeah.
And I think my brother and my dad had actually stood up to him as what happened and been like, you know, do you want to die? You know, basically, I think is what happened.
If it's that bad by 2 months in, my gosh.
Yeah. Well, so you have one brother. Do you have any other siblings?
I have 6 brothers and sisters.
You have 6 brothers and sisters. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you couldn't go where your kids were. So your kids were from your first marriage. And where are they at this point that you're making your great escape?
They're with their dad. And this is what I was trying to tell y'all about earlier. I knew that I was not going to survive the relationship with my first husband because he was mentally breaking me down to the point where I just wanted to die. Oh, this pisses me off so bad. Oh my fucking God.
Good.
Let it out. Let it fucking out.
And the church had his back. The church had his back. And I still believed in the church. I came up with the plan of I will get away and then I will come back and get my kids because I had no power. And so that was my plan. And then I met with my ex-husband who thought was going to be who was going to save me and make everything okay, you know, and I'd be able to get my kids back. But instead, he made me worse crazy, and I lost custody of my children. Had I not made that choice, even if I did end up in the frying pan, like I was already so screwed up, I didn't feel safe for my children, is why I was willing to leave them with their dad. And I didn't think he was safe for them either. But I was so out of control that I just was afraid for them around me. And that's just the truth of it. Because I was so angry. And when it was just my daughter, I was okay-ish. Like I could still keep functioning. But then it was when it was my daughter and my son and the church and my husband, it was too much. I couldn't function as a human being.
And that does not make you a terrible person at all, Dawna. In fact, those kids needed their mother. And what if you found yourself in a situation where you did not survive? Then you definitely would not have been there for your children. Eventually, we all have a breaking point.
And for a long time I did. And I was sometimes mad that I had to survive. But I had a therapist who told me that if I killed myself, which was please just let me die. I hated life so much that she was like, if you kill yourself, both of your children have a 50-50 chance of killing themselves. And
fuck.
And so I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I got to stay alive. Like, really? Yeah. And I didn't like it, but I was not going to do any worse harm than I felt I had already done to my children. And, you know, I have worked really hard to heal. I was not there for them.
But what else could you have done than what you were working with? The way the church set you up, the way the society was kind of set up to support what the church was doing and thinking it's good because it's God. You know, like we are only working with what we've got, you know, like what we're born with and what gets put into us as we go through our life. What the fuck else are we supposed to pull from to do what we need to do in life, right? Like we are all doing the best we can with what we have in that moment. And as soon as we think that we should have done something else, we're lying to ourselves, because to have done something else literally wouldn't have been possible. And what I see from your story is that in those moments, you did the very best thing that you could figure out to do the best for your children first and for yourself. And I want to honor your journey. Okay.
Thank you.
And yeah. I mean,
that's very powerful, Pat. We can only work with what we have, not having regrets. Yes, we could go through our entire lives saying, I could have done this better. I could have done that better.
I mean, but that is
limited. We're so limited.
And that's one of the things I have learned. If I could have done different, I would have, because when I was able to, I did. When I had new knowledge and new information and new coping skills and whatnot, I used them. Yeah. And it also makes people, I'm sorry, but this is the truth. I have seen this across the board with Worldwide Church God members, and a lot of them will admit it now that are no longer in it. But thinking you have the truth really sets you up for arrogancy, such arrogancy and self-righteousness. Even me, who is like, I can't do all this, but I still knew the truth. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous.
Coming from the mouths of so many religious organizations too. Nope, not them. We are the correct ones. Only us have the truth, and they are trying to deceive you.
Yeah.
I want to keep setting that off. My little. Sorry. So, but Dawna, I don't know if this story helps you at all. I just thought of this. My husband and I, a few years back, had traveled down to Louisiana, of all places, and to see a friend of his from India. Him and his wife, they had a daughter. I had never met them before, but he knew him from college, hadn't seen him in a while. And, we FaceTimed here and there before we got down there. We were doing like this little road trip, and we're like, okay, so we're going to be down there for like a week or so and hang out. And everything seemed okay in the FaceTime. We're just chatting. We're talking about how excited we are for the visit, how forward they are looking to having us. The day that we arrived, Dawna, the wife wasn't there. Like she wasn't there to greet us. And I thought that was a little odd. I was like, well, okay, there's this couple with a child that are going to be hosting us for a few days. And but the husband just kind of made an excuse, like, oh, I think she went to go hang out with her friends. Which actually he didn't even know. I just thought that was weird, that she would have planned something when she has guests coming. Particularly, I had never met either of them before. And so we're just kind of settling in. Well, it's getting to be the next day. I'm like, she didn't come back at all. Again, the husband's just kind of making excuses. Something seems off. My husband managed to contact her. She had gone back to India. She left that morning. She drove to the airport and she escaped. It turns out he was highly abusive to the point she had to get out that moment. Even on the day when my husband and I were supposed to arrive, she had to leave her daughter behind. It got that bad. So I don't know if that resonates with you at all. So obviously, probably the same sorts of things were going on in her mind. So like, do I leave? She had citizenship to India. Her child did not. She had to leave her, but she just knew her life was in danger. The abuse was that bad and she had to get out. So I haven't heard any updates since, but your story just made me think of that. Like you are not the only woman or just person in general who has, feared for their life and needed to possibly leave children behind for your own personal safety.
By the time that I left, he had quit being physically abusive, my first husband, and was only verbally abusive. But he was
how generous.
He was literally making me insane. He would literally, I don't know how the right words for this, but he would do things to try to make me think that I was crazy.
Oh, gaslighting.
Yeah.
Yes, like he would move something and be like, "Oh, I didn't move that."
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Gosh.
And so, like, he was really messing with my sanity, and I was going to see a therapist. And she'd be like, she thought I had multiple personalities because one day I'd be coming out, oh, I love him so much. And the next day, oh, I hate him with all my heart. But it was just
Yeah.
because of the cognitive dissonance that was going on. Like, I believed he loved me one day, and the next day I believed he hated me, so. But I just want to give y'all an example of how extreme the church. I'd like to say this out loud for other people to hear. I remember one time my first husband telling me to shut up. And I said, okay, because, I was submissive. And his friend was like, man, I hope I can get me a wife like that.
Gross.
I know.
Ugh.
I'm sure he took all the pride from that too. Like, yep, my wife listens to me. Yeah, disgusting.
Ew.
Disgusting.
Okay.
It was.
Can we just have a fuck the patriarchy moment?
Yes.
Right?
Come on, everybody.
Oh,
do it.
Fuck the patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
I hate it with my heart and soul. It's such a destroyer of souls.
It is. And it's bad for women, but I think we don't talk enough about how bad the patriarchy is for men.
Yes.
Too.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
This is just how strongly the church screwed us over, in my personal opinion. But, my mother wasn't in the church. And I remember we had a sermon. I remember where I was sitting and everything. And I was sitting close to the front. And the minister that day was telling about what was going to happen to the people who were left behind. Now, take in mind, my mother was not in the church. And so they were talking. And we were children. Why would they say this in front of children?
Hmm?
Talking about how women were going to be raped, babies were going to be thrown in the air and caught on swords, just the horrible, evil things that would happen to people. And they were very, very graphic about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, that's what's going to happen to my mama.
Yeah.
My mama. And my mama loved me. She loved me well. She had just got stuck in, a rough situation. And that she wouldn't leave because she loved her children. And it got better over the years, but the church is what I'm talking about, not my dad, the church.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I remember as a child being like, well, I'm not going to let that happen to my mother. And, we couldn't tell we couldn't tell people outside the church what was happening in the church, right? We couldn't tell them we were going to place of safety. We couldn't tell them any of that stuff. And so I remember thinking, how can I protect my mother when I can't tell her? She won't believe me. She won't believe the truth, And so I literally, as a child, and this was some very black and white thinking, but like as a child, I'm just trying to figure out how can I protect this how can I stop this from happening to my mother? And the only solution that I could come up with was, well, I'm going to be left behind, so I'm going to stay with mama, and I will wait until she's not looking or something and kill her and then kill me. Because I was so terrified of what would happen to her. Like I was trying to think of ways that I could kill her without hurting her. And I mean, this is how deeply ingrained this bullshit was.
Dawna, stories like yours are so important. How many other people out there, survivors out there, think exactly the same way?
And this is such a good example of what happens to us when we find ourselves in desperation. Yes. When we are desperate, we go to places we would never otherwise go because it suspends all of our like critical thinking skills, and it's just pure like protection, survival. Mm-hmm. I mean, to the point that you considered something you would never have considered otherwise. And it was like, I might have to do this horrible thing so that I can prevent worse horrible things. I mean, fuck. Mm-hmm. Dawna, I'm okay just sitting with this for a second.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
I mean, it's like we've kind of touched on this with the idea that our parents were taught that they were doing wrong by us if they didn't hit us, right? If they didn't.
And they were taught that, which is utter bullshit. You have to fight everything in your body to let somebody hit you and just allow it. And what you had to do with the parents who believe that it's okay to, or that it's their job. They literally believe this is their job, or he did.
And not only that, we blame ourselves for it. They're like, I deserve this because I'm the one that fucking did this. So I deserve to be physically punished.
I remember
Fuck
saying
all the way
to
off.
myself, I remember saying to myself, I've never had a whipping I didn't deserve.
Oh no. Well, but that's what we were told. When we were spanked, it was a wooden spoon in our house. And I was directly like face to face, I'm doing this because I love you.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. I don't like doing this. I'm doing this for your own good.
And that is the literal truth. I mean, looking back now, I can see that my dad was struggling. Like, I don't know what else to do, and this is my job. And he has since said, I'm so sorry. I read books, and because you remember what's the name of that child rearing book they Garner Ted or somebody wrote?
Focus on the Family.
Yes.
Yeah, that's for him too.
That one. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was such a punitive style, even though he was on the evangelical side. It like the punitiveness of it matched with Worldwide, and so I could see that there would be a lot of crossover there.
Oh yeah, which to the point that they recommended it because we got to beat the hell out of these kids or they'll be in hell, or the not hell to be disappeared forever. And that's another thing. That is another thing that we were told that if we didn't make it, we would be erased from humanity's memory forever. Yeah. So like if you didn't make it to the first resurrection, didn't make it to the third resurrection, second resurrection, then you went through all that, and the next one was, and which I thoroughly believed I was a bad person. I believed I was a bad person. So I was like, oh, well, I'm screwed. And so, and then if you don't make it into the third resurrection, well, you get thrown into the lake of fire. Your memory is erased for all time for everybody, so that people don't have to hurt. So I'm like, I'm not even going to be remembered. So I remember thinking, how can I make my mark in this world? Like I wanted to leave something that even if people forgot me, there would be some evidence that I existed in people's memories. Like I was wanting to start a safe house for children of sexual abuse, and then of women who are molested, women who are beaten. I wanted to start a house, which that never happened. I still haven't given up on that right now.
Yeah, hey, there's time.
It just hasn't happened yet.
Is it weird that as an adult, I actually find the annihilationist mentality versus eternal torment in hell to be actually better?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's weird. So this God, who's supposed to love us, also wants us to fear them. Who does that remind me of?
Yeah.
Could it be, abusive husbands?
The Bible was clearly written by power hungry and controlling men.
Yes.
It's very obvious. And I am pretty blown away by how much influence it has actually had all throughout history. I'm blown away. Blown away.
It's rather terrifying.
It's absolutely terrifying. Yeah. And it preys on the vulnerable, Dawna.
Yes.
And it's not that these people are necessarily vulnerable. They have been set up to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And susceptible to the Bible's messages.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and then take that to where you live there in Georgia, and you're not just facing it from, growing up in the worldwide, like you're in the Bible Belt. So all of this is just, it is everywhere in the US, but it is completely suffused into the culture where you live. So, these were just given ideas, right? So you wouldn't question the absolute basis of them because it had been bred into you from every aspect. So your thoughts on questioning reality is so valid because at that point you may not have had that many inputs showing you reality or allowing you to see reality. Holy shit.
We weren't allowed to be around inputs that would show us other realities. That was very intentional. Because we might and go, oh, wait a minute. And that was their intent. That's why they didn't want us, what's the word they use for, congregating with the unbeliever or whatever. That's why.
Oh yeah.
If we
You
heard,
pagans, you heathens.
yeah,
Sorry, I
if
keep
we
getting
thought these other
messages.
people were humans, and we're not evil. And that was one of the first things that shocked me when I went out into the world, that everybody wasn't mean. I was like,
Yeah, right? Like, oh, these people are kind of nice and they know cool shit. But I thought they were evil.
There's a reason they tell you not to speak to them. You are going to figure it out. Yep.
Well, that's like Nancy, you might have heard Nancy and I talk about our dad followed a different guy named Brother Stair, who was like sort of tangential to worldwide, like he kept Sabbath and stuff like that. But his whole thing was get out of the cities, get out of the churches, don't see doctors, and get rid of your TVs. I mean, like, wow,
Those poor
here's
major
how
things,
you put a little
Oh,
bubble
yeah.
around people,
1,000%. Yes.
And he was a
so
registered
smart.
pedophile. Just,
Oh, of course.
Armstrong was accused of it as well.
Of course.
It's always there.
And I think that's another thing, that extreme groups of any kind, our church, the other churches, and I say church, I'm putting quotation marks around that because.
Yep, we got
But it attracts extreme people.
Mhm.
And like pedophiles, oh my God. I remember the men in our church were such creeps. I mean, it's just the truth. I eventually had to testify against one later on in life.
Oh gosh.
But multiple pedophiles just in our church area.
Mhm.
And I remember trying to get the ministry to look at a letter that one of them had written me. And this was pre-12, okay? That was
dear.
just creepy and disgusting, and they didn't want to invade his privacy.
What?
Oh my gosh.
Invade his fucking privacy while
When he's
being
writing
a pedophile?
sexy letters to 11-year-olds? Okay.
Yes, and not only that, if you were, think about this, how we were taught as children, that if you have an issue with another member in the church, you first go to that member. Now, as a child, so first you go to that member. If they don't say, yes, I was wrong or whatever, then you take somebody else with you and you go, okay. So that's a process that I was taught we have to go through in order to have anything dealt with. So do you see me as a child going to my pedophile and being like, hey, that's pretty fucked up. Maybe, you're wrong. You shouldn't do that.
I'm sure your confidence was dripping at the seems, being
yeah.
12-year-old in that church. Oh, yeah. You know exactly what's up with the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great book.
Oh.
Disgusting.
It is disgusting. I mean, when you think about it, it's just like unfucking believable. And that, then when the church did find out and accept that it was reality for one of them, then it was like, oh, well, he's just kicked out of the church for a year.
That'll teach him. It's
Sorry.
like Josh Duggar with his slap on the wrist so he could keep with his
Exactly.
child porn. Yeah.
So I was in the military for 10 years, Dawna, and I remember 2, maybe 3 reports, like claims that I had filed against men who were either sexually harassing or sexually like assaulting me, like literally like superiors. One of the guys, well, no punishment. He just literally got moved to a different unit so he wouldn't be around me and another girl that he was bothering. That's it. And I did have to run into him later on in my career, and he started talking to me, and I had to pretend that I didn't know who he was because I was so uncomfortable. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No,
But I mean, the Army would validly be called a cult if it were not the Army.
I agree.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I agree with you.
Yes.
And I can give you plenty of examples. Some people will say it's those people individually and not the system that's in place. No, the system is part of the problem. If the
system has to support it. If the system didn't want to support it and was willing to do things, then it wouldn't be a cult. But the system is not willing to support it. Everything's done in-house. Everything's protected because you're protecting the culture. You're protecting the cult, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's everybody. If it's
people choose to they pretend not to see it too. And I think one of the problems that for women especially, or just people that can be vulnerable to these things, they don't realize. I know in your mind, you know it's not okay, but you can't really speak up because nobody cares what the fuck you think. They don't care how you feel. You know, they don't care the fact that this highly respected commander of this entire unit who's married with children asks us females in private, like, so what kind of panties are you wearing? Fuck all the way off. You know, they turned a blind eye to it. But again, it's like, how do we defend ourselves? It just like
you don't. You
submit, like, oh, he's just like that. Boys will be boys. You know, being taught that mentality from a young age. You're like, that's just what they do.
And that is such fucking bullshit. That is a patriarchy right there to it.
Yes. Well, and
so
as soon as we say that,
responsibility, they learn that boys will be boys. So they
exactly. They know they can get away with it, and
it facilitates it. It makes it worse because they have the green light. Ugh. Well,
are we pissed off enough yet?
I think we are. I think that we should be, and I think we should not be fucking quiet when we are pissed off. That's what I think. Well, we were quiet for too long.
But we're females. We're told to shut the fuck up, and we're emotional and all this crap.
And literally told, you need to learn to keep your mouth shut. Let me take your husband out for a beer. I mean,
I may not get over that ever.
If we all get over our traumas and help support each other and not put certain people up on a pedestal and just listen to whatever they say while they're trying to take their power and control, we might get to that point where we can support each other and believe in each other and not this entity that we've created. And I just heard this quote this morning. I'm not sure how I feel about the term spirituality. Patty and I are still juggling around definitions and their meanings and their feelings, but it said religion is about social acceptance. Spirituality is about self-acceptance. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about the term spirituality, but I get what that quote is saying. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because
that's the thing that's the thing that has truly changed my life. I was by meeting this being or myself or whoever.
Okay.
Yeah. I learned that it was okay for me to love myself. And, you know, we were very much taught, do not be lovers of yourselves. I mean, you know, and so I thought loving myself would be prideful. And plus I thought I was a bad person. I just thought I didn't know that I had CPTSD. I didn't know what was happening in my brain, why I was having so much anger and rage and why my life was out of control and why I went in and out of reality. I didn't know. I just thought I was a bad person.
These people are so good at what they preach too. It's like they know the exact buttons to push, make you feel like you are undeserving and you hate yourself, and they have you. They know they have you for life if they can keep you in that mentality. So like, you need God. And I am the facilitator of God. So you have to listen to me because I report directly to God. Or you can be like Herbert Armstrong says, he's speaking through me.
Oh my God, it's so horrifying.
Sorry.
But what you got out of that experience, whatever it was that changed, is you got you. You know, and you got to be you and know and like see all these things that happened to you and be able to not be bad anymore.
Well, and that's when I started piecing things together. That's when I was like, okay, why do I believe the things that I believe? And I've locked myself in my house during this time. And every thought that I would come to my head, I'd be like, is this truth? Or is this something I just believe? Because the way I was raised or perceptions of things that I was taught, is this truth? And so every thought that I'd have, I'd followed it out to the end. What is the truth? What is the fucking truth?
Oh my gosh. I think that was part of my path too, because our dad growing up, that was the thing, like truth, right? And that's why he thought Armstrong was so important, because he had been convinced that Armstrong had the truth. And so like having a true thing, having the ideal, having the perfect, whatever, like was everything. And I think that idea, the idea of having to have ideal, perfect, original, whatever, screwed me up for a long time. But yeah, it was that idea of truth, of like, I need to find out what is true. And
Yes.
at that point, I actually had the resources, and I was old enough, and I had like experienced enough other things that I actually was ready for that task. And when I did, nothing of the church held water. He's already convinced of something that he has decided is truth. And so he is keeping that as the baseline, and everything else he's checking out according to that, instead of actually getting under it.
Yeah.
Right. Because
And
that
asking the
one
questions.
thing got stuck so hard. And he spends time like continuing to uphold that brainwashing for himself. Our mom does too, right? They'll sit and they'll listen to tapes, they'll read the Bible, and they're just like if we build highways in our brain, you know, when we have an idea about something, you know, it's like it starts out like a little dirt road, right? And the more we engage with those ideas, we're putting down pavers, we're putting in asphalt, we're adding lanes, right? And pretty soon we've got a big fucking Texas mega highway of this idea that's going to take a whole lot longer for nature to reclaim, you know? And I think you, Dawna, got some sort of bonus with that stroke. Like whatever happened, it was like it shot some new foliage or something up through those highways and just broke them in one fell swoop. And that is pretty lucky.
What?
It's incredible how the human body protects us. And again, yeah, sometimes we reach a breaking point at some point, and our bodies do what they can to protect us, whether it's a young girl who endured incredible sexual abuse so hard in her early life that she gained multiple personalities because all those other personalities were protecting her.
Right.
You know, the body, it's like it knows what to do. It can only be taken so far.
Yes. And I truly, for a while, I thought I had multiple personalities, like my therapist thought I did, because I really would like just disappear for a while.
Mhm.
Like I would just, only to find out later that it was just PTSD. I was literally going back and forth in time in my brain, you know, and so I wasn't cognizant of everything that was going on, but I was still functioning because I had trained to function in the midst of this fuckery that's so fucked up.
Some people call it floating, I think was the term that we had learned in that conference, Patty. Floating. And that's kind of how I had felt growing up too, or like a numbness. It was like I was there, but I wasn't there. I was almost floating and just kind of seeing what was going on, but it was like everything was just shut off.
That's
and
being disembodied, right? Being disembodied.
Maybe that's the word I was looking for.
Right.
And I had just such a rough time out in the world trying to, my jobs especially, because again, I was waiting for someone to tell me what to do. I couldn't use my own brain and figure out like, hey, here's how I do this. No, why isn't my boss telling me what I'm supposed to do next? Like, no, this is your job to do, figure out.
Yes,
like,
and high control religions or environments in general, they literally do they give you brain damage. You lose your critical thinking skills. Like you just do not develop them because
obedience is where critical thinking ends. It's done. If you critically think and you read the Bible as such and you hear what these people are saying, you're going to figure it out for yourself that it is all bullshit. It is all control and manipulation, but they don't want you to figure it out.
That's right.
That I agree completely. I agree so hardcore. I mean, I really, as I went through my life and looked at what happened, you know, as I went on this journey, and which it has been quite a journey. I really have a wonderful life at this point that I worked really hard for, and I have joy in my life now. And for a long time, I was like, I had like 20% other feelings and 80% pain for decades. and longed to die. So, I just wanted to die so bad. I hated life so much.
Mm-hmm.
And to go from that to having a life worth living, to being able to be present and forward for my children. And, it is just, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful I'm at this part of this journey, which I would have thought was a possibility.
The pain and suffering might always be there. It might just always be a part of our lives, but it doesn't control you anymore. And that's the important thing. You're a cycle breaker. You're not going to pass it along to your children or to anyone else. And that's the point that we're trying to get at, is that these traumatic experiences do not continue on, because a lot of people do allow that, or it's just overflowing inside them so much to the point where they project it onto other people. And then the cycle continues. And that's what we need to stop.
When I had that stroke, I was drunk. I was high. And so I really, if I was going to meet God at that point in my life, I would have thought that he'd be like, oh God, you're a terrible, terrible person. And like, I was fully prepared. Should I meet God, that I would be dead, I'd be like, oh, please don't kill me. But I figured he would, So to be met with love was extremely shocking for me. As life has continued and I have learned and grown and worked, and I have discovered the only truth that I know is love. That's the only truth. That's the only thing that actually changes things.
Yes.
Is love.
I agree with you.
Love, compassion.
Yeah, compassion. And I mean, sometimes I like to talk a lot about compassion because, even when we're angry and when we are upset at what other people have done to us in the past and that kind of thing, it's a rather radical act of compassion to recognize that, if we can see that for ourselves, we acted in these ways we wouldn't have wanted to, and that we did it because we were so desperate, because we were so hurting, and we had these very real, very important human needs that we needed to meet. And so our bodies were going to do whatever they had to do to meet them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we have to recognize that all the people who hurt us also went through experiences that made them like so desperate, so broken, that the things they did to us were in service of them trying to meet their needs too. Like, it's horrible, and we shouldn't say it's okay. We shouldn't accept it. We shouldn't let it keep happening. But if nothing else, it should give us compassion for those people to recognize the extreme hurt and pain that they must have been in to do what they did to us too.
Right. And I just wanted to clarify, it's not that you are making excuses for these people, because sometimes people will try to pull that shit. Like, no, it is reasons. It is trying to figure out, okay, well, are we just going to say, oh, this person's a bad person then? Yeah, they did bad things. But can we pinpoint where something happened in their life to cause them to be this way? I even read Herbert Armstrong's autobiography just to try to get some sense of who he was and how he was able to just draw in hundreds, thousands of people the way that he did. What was going on in his mind? And I tried to see, the parallels there. Again, not as an excuse, but as reasons, so that we can prevent these things in the future.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm in complete agreement with that, because, like, does that, like, just knowing that there are reasons, does that make it okay? No.
Nope.
When we try to stop evil, when
it's just reasons. Yeah.
Yes. But can we also understand and have compassion for where they came from? And like, I don't know how it works in the real world. In reality, we have jails. We don't have that great of a system for dealing with mankind's foibles.
We do not.
And flaws and lashing out. We just don't have a good program at all.
Agreed.
And so
we have good punishments in place, though.
Yeah, but
not rehabilitation.
Yeah, from what I
not good, but you know what I mean.
Yes, but what I have seen in reality, for me in particular, and I can't speak for any other human being, is I never learned from punishment. I learned how to be sneakier.
Yes.
I changed because I didn't want to get in trouble,
Yes.
but it never changed my heart. It never
Nope.
changed who I was and what I was about. Only love changed that.
Mm-hmm.
Only love. Nothing
And not the fear kind of love.
No.
Right.
And the fear kind of love to me is not love.
Agreed.
It's not. It is control. And I mean I will never try to love somebody and fear them again.
And getting back to that earlier point, I am subscribed, or like I follow this Facebook page called Herbert W. Armstrong, one of those Facebook pages where a lot of the survivors get together and talk about things. And they post stuff that I saw a copy of the Good News. It's like one of those Plain Truth magazines, and the title said how to get your children to behave in church. Oh, and it went back that whole, there's a whole, I have yet to read the article, but basically how to get your children to sit still and shut the fuck up in the middle of church. That's what they mean by behaving. And that's a lot of what I remember from childhood, is just sitting and shutting the fuck up while our parents take notes from this preacher who's banging on the fucking podium and saying shit that I don't understand. And then leaving. Yay! Life is so great.
Life is just fabulous like this. I remember taking notes. Like I remember before I could write, taking notes. I would just scribble in a notebook because that's what everybody else was doing, So all 7 of us had to take notes, and we had to talk about what the sermon was about on the way home, And my father was deeply trying to give us what we needed. That is what he believed he was doing. He was not trying to hurt us. He loves us. But that is just what he believed, and it hurt us. What his beliefs hurt us because they became our beliefs. And we didn't have an adult filter to run it through. That was just, we were told it, and it was true. That's what we knew.
What you're making me think of, though, is in evangelical world, they are hyper aware of the vulnerable years of a child's brain, right? For when they can indoctrinate them. And so there is literally a website that's something like 4to14.com, where they're just out there unironically and somehow like not aware of themselves saying, here's the ages that you need to make sure these kids hear these things and take these things into their heart, because otherwise they're not gonna, follow the ways of the Lord. And it's like, okay, do you all realize you're literally saying, like, make sure you take advantage of them while they're young and don't know enough about the world? Like, you're literally saying it out loud and you think it's fine.
Jesus,
what the fuck?
They really do. Yeah. And, I joined an evangelistic church after I had the stroke and met God. And I was like, okay, well, God is real and God loves us. Like, great.
Yeah, and, they're kind of a God loves us group. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I was like, well, maybe just our church, but as you look at them, they're all the same, really.
Dawna, the way that I would describe it, because obviously we all have the experience of being in both. You have the doomsday cult, and then you have the fluffy rainbows out your asshole, Jesus loving people type evangelicalism. And I describe it as, okay, so Worldwide Church of God was like, you were shitty to people's faces, but with evangelicalism, you're nice to people's faces, but the moment their back is turned, then you're shitty to them. That's kind of how it felt to me. Like, in a way, evangelicalism kind of broke me a little bit more, was the fakery, at least with doomsday calls. You're just like, you're getting the real thing. Like, this is how shitty it is. No surprises. But evangelicalism, like, nope, Jesus loves you.
Are we saying we've got fuckery and fakery? Those are
fuckery and fakery, Patty. I like it. Yes.
I would never recommend church to anybody ever again, ever, under any circumstances whatsoever.
But maybe a little more engagement with the idea of love and compassion.
Yeah. 1,000%. If we don't care for each other, if we're not kind to each other, if we don't look out for each other, Who's gonna?
I always say if someone needs to go to church and be in a religion to be a good person, like they need that to keep them in line, how good of people were they to begin with? You know, if they fear that someone is watching them at all times, we're like, I'm not going to steal from this person because I fear God's retribution and he says don't steal. No, you don't steal because you don't want that to be done to you. You care and have compassion about your fellow human over here, and therefore I'm not going to steal from them for that reason, not because I fear punishment.
Well, and as soon as
Exactly.
we're taught not to do something and it's obedience, we actually lose our ability to see it that way. Right? Like it's the golden rule, you know, it's do unto others, but it's like when it's taught in a different way, then we can't step back and be like, oh, well, how's that person going to feel if I do that to them? How would I feel if someone did that to me? I
Yes,
think you
because you're
hit it
sinning
right on
against
the head.
God, not against a person.
Yep.
Right, right. And so it takes it actually kind of separates us from each other and makes us unable to recognize that we actually are all in this together and that all of our actions affect each other. I mean, we can't do anything unless it's together. And so we have to recognize that we're not as separate as we would like to think we are. You know,
Well,
it's
and
a
then
weird balance, I suppose, of our individualism and recognizing that we are a collective species. But I think if our minds are clear and we're not being told things that aren't true and made to believe things that aren't true, I I hmm, I have hope for that. I have hope that we could do something better together that isn't about profit, that isn't about control, that isn't about power, and something that is about well-being for more people, needs met for more people. Like maybe I'm maybe I'm too optimistic that I think that's possible, but I think if we learn and strive for addressing our traumas and understanding how we break these cycles, I actually have hope that we can make change over time. Maybe that's 500 years down the line till us humans have our shit a little more figured out. I know we could point to a whole lot of stuff that means the world is terrible right now, you know, and we're not wrong to point those out, but in fact there are fewer people starving percentage-wise on the planet than ever before, you know, and so I think it's too easy to go down that kind of doom and gloom doomsday path, especially because of how we all grew up. It's sort of our set point.
yeah.
Right?
But I think we can take heart and look around and be like, you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of shit going on, but at least half of what I see around me can be joyful if I choose to see it that way.
Yes.
You
And I
know?
think we need to get rid of the phrase, "Oh, I'll pray for you." Instead
Uh,
of that's a cop out to me. If your
it
fellow
is.
human
Get
is
on your hands
asking for
and
help,
get on your feet.
yeah, they want help. They want your advice. They need something from you, and they are get to the point where they actually are asking, because how many people need help but don't ask because of pride or whatever the fuck reason, and then you get this bullshit evangelical answer like, "Oh, I'll pray for you." Go fuck yourself. They're asking for your help, not your
Yes.
God's help. Sorry, I
Love
get
it.
angry about that one because that's a
I
cop
want to
out.
bring
When somebody goes to you and says, I'll pray for you." No, that's not what they're asking for. That is about you, not about them. And they are asking you.
saying, I'll pray for you when someone's coming to you hurting is like when a child comes to you and asks for food and you say, I'll pray you get some. How's that help that child? Religion should be, I think religion is hell. I don't believe in religion anymore. I do
Okay.
believe in somebody who loves us, and that's about it. And I believe in love and the power that love has. At least in the South. I don't know about up north, but um, in the evangelical church is still sexist. I mean, while I was in that church, there was a woman who I just love her to pieces, but she had 7 children. Her husband was abusive and leaving her. He was cheating on her.
Mhm.
And the church's advice to this woman, was to be an example. Be an example of the Lord for your husband, and maybe eventually he'll come to the Lord. And me, I was on the sidelines going,
Yeah.
run fast.
Run
far.
fast and far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was
Always
just,
the excuses.
yeah. And make it the woman's responsibility to accept abuse and make it a virtuous thing for you to accept abuse to bring someone to the Lord.
Mm. And he's supposed to be the leader of the family,
Yeah.
except then they're telling her to, just quietly lead by example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for my husband while he's off with his mistress.
Right. Exactly. And that's what was happening. I was just like,
Gross.
and I should have, but I just thought it was the person giving the advice at the time. I was like, well, they're just confused. But as I look back, no, that's
It's the
what
whole
they're being
system.
taught and what they believe is
Yeah.
right.
You have quite the story, Dawna. I just can't even. Wow. The thing you should be proud of yourself and the things that you have overcome, my dear.
Totally agree.
Not everyone is so lucky.
So first I had to stop hating myself.
Yeah.
And I did that. And then I was like, but how do you love yourself? Like, I had no idea. And everything I'd learned about loving yourself was that's bad. That's an evil thing to do.
Because you probably didn't even know what love was. You don't know what it looked like. You had no good examples.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I did have my mother who loved and adored me, but and I have 6 brothers and sisters who love me, but I could not love myself, and thought I was a bad and evil person. And so learning that it was okay for me to love me, like I literally had to go, well, how do you love yourself? What does that even look like?
Yeah.
And so I started looking up affirmations for self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And I started listening to them and hearing different words in my head, about loving yourself. And I just really think that is the key. That has been the key to my healing journey, is learning to love myself. And in learning to love myself, I began to understand my needs and wants. And that translates out into relationships, because you're like, oh, I understand how I need that. Maybe they need that. When before, I blocked everything hardcore, and I didn't know how to love or give love, and I didn't know how to receive love.
And here you are on the internet telling other people that love exists and you can live in love.
Yay.
And it is the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. I've already lived in hell. I'm not afraid of hell.
Oh, yes.
I made it through hell.
Damaged people are the most dangerous because they know they can survive. You know that you've already survived hell, and so hell doesn't scare you.
We learned how to sway people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I'm going to sway people, I'm going to sway them to love, because love is the thing that changes everything.
And that is so powerful in changing the world. And it's not like, oh, we're saviors, because I think that's another way that we get put into smaller boxes of, oh, you think you're going to help the world? Well, who do you think you are? It's like, no, you can fuck off, because if I affect one person for the better, I have changed the world.
Yes.
And I'm okay that that's the scale of it, because if everyone operated on that scale, we would absolutely change the whole fucking world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So thank you, Dawna, for being a part of that and doing that. You are doing it too. You're changing the world by coming on this podcast.
But the main thing is that we've taken our power back, right? It seems like you have a very good hold of yourself now and understand who you are and what you're about, Dawna. Those ideologies don't have control over you anymore. Those manipulative, disgusting pedophiles and abusive men don't have control over you. And as long as you're not afraid of them anymore, you can move forward. And it looks like that's exactly what you're doing. So
I am. And I like I said, I really have a life worth living now.
Yeah.
And that it's been 30 years in the making, and I'm incredibly grateful, just incredibly grateful for the life I live, and the chance this chance right here to tell people, this doesn't have to be the rest of your life. Things can change. You can learn to love yourself. You can give yourself love and then be able to give other people love. Like, life does not have to be hell on earth.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for this amazing episode with our new friend, Dawna, as we got to find all about her experiences growing up in the Worldwide Church of God. Later.
Thank you, Dawna. We appreciate you so much. Sending love your way, dear.
It was the love episode. We love you.
Love too.
Yeah. Story of our lives.
Hashtag real life. It's all good.
You want to talk about dealing with stuff, Dawna?
This is not coffee.